this day. I want to talk today about how expectations lead us to disappointment. And before anybody says it, no, I don't mean expectations as in you can't have standards, or you can't have values or morals or whatever. But I mean expectations with regards to people that we deal with regards to life in general. An expectation is basically a romanticized idea that you have. It's where in your mind you would like something or someone to be a certain way or to do a certain thing, and if they don't, then you're left disappointed and crushed. The thing about disappointment, though, is that it really it can breed deep resentment. It messes with our faith. It makes us really discontent, which can really create some distance in our relationship with God. Because when you expect something or someone to be a certain way and they don't hold up to that, it leaves brokenness in you. Because in your mind, this is how it should have been, or this is how they should have been. And this is why in relationships, we end up so hurt and so disappointed and so broken because we expected that person would never hurt us, or that they would treat us a certain way, or that they would always be a certain way. I can remember early in my life, like my first couple of relationships, I had this expectation that it would always be lovey-dovey, that it would always be sweet, that it would always be romantic. And then when I would get into relationships and it wasn't always lovey-dovey, or the other person was not always doting on me, I would feel like they didn't love me or they didn't care about me, or I would feel less than because my expectation was not being met. The reality is, though, is that relationships are not always going to be lovey-dovey. But growing up as a little girl, and I know that we think that one thing doesn't always affect another, but growing up as a little girl and seeing all these princess movies and all that, you grow up believing that that's really what love is and that's what relationships are. And then boom, you get in a relationship and you're like, how come it's not like this, or how come it's not like that? And so expectations will lead you to be disappointed because that romanticized idea that you had of that person or that thing or that situation will come crashing down on you at some point. Because number one, with regards to people are not perfect. So you're not ever going to get into a situation where everything is how you like. This is why we leave people. This is why we leave jobs. This is why we give up on careers, because we don't have that understanding that your expectation will never be met, because we have in our mind one thing and it's never really based on reality. It's always the way that we dream or imagine or desire for something to be. And you've got to understand that your expectations will leave you disappointed if you don't have realistic expectations. So realistically, what you've got to understand is that that person is not always going to be how you want them to be, or that job is not always going to be how you want it to be, or their career may not always feel as rewarding as you thought it would. Or I know for me, and my mom knows this, my mom and I talk about this all the time, that when I graduated high school, I didn't do what most people do. I spent a lot of my time after high school wasting time. So now one of the struggles that I've had as an adult is that struggle of being frustrated because I didn't do what I should have done, and I had this expectation that I would be in a different place in my life, or this expectation that by this time I would be married or engaged, or I would have met the right person, or that by this time I would be, here or there. And that expectation that I had on my life has left me a lot of days disappointed, hurt, frustrated, angry, mad at the world, mad at God, because the way that I saw my life is not how it ended up. Crazy part about it is that God's plan will always be better than your expectations. So where you might have the expectation that, well, I should have been here by this point in my life, even if you're not, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And it has been such a journey for me to come to grips with the disappointment of my expectations. And my mom is always telling me, you got to let what happened be what happened, and you got to look at where you are and you have to move forward. And that's so true. So it's the same with your expectations of people. I've had so many people in my life, especially relationships, so many people that I held to a higher, unrealistic expectation And when they didn't meet it, I was so broken and I was so torn up. And I remember, as a matter of fact, this time last year when I was going through my breakup, I was like, God, why is it that I keep getting hurt? And why is it that I can't meet the right person? And God says, true enough, you haven't met the right person. You keep, kind of get into these dysfunctional relationships. However, you also, in this time that you're single, you're going to have to learn how to have realistic expectations of people, because when you do meet the right person, if you continue to have these unrealistic, romanticized expectations of people, you are always going to end up disappointed. If you have the expectation that it's always going to be roses in your relationship, you will be disappointed, because it's not always fun to love people. It's not always easy to love people. It's not easy to stay. It's not easy to fight for it. If you have an expectation of your family that you all will never argue or disagree, let me tell you, you will be disappointed, because even family, as much as you love one another, family argues. If you have the expectation of your friend that y'all will never get into it or stop talking for certain periods of time, you will be disappointed, because we create our expectations based on our imagination, based on what we've observed. So like based on what society has said or what it's supposed to be, based on fairy tale movies. Like I said, when I first started dating, I was like, this is not like Disney. It is not fun every day, and it's not easy every day. But you began to, over time, understand that like God has grace for us. We're not perfect, and we can't be expected to be perfect, because God knows our nature. So you have to know the nature of other people is that they will never be perfect, and you miss out on a lot of good people and good opportunities because it's not how you expected it to be. So you think that it's wrong because it's not how you thought it was going to be. It's not necessarily that it's wrong. It's that your expectation of it might not have been what it was. If you go into a job, you work 7 years for your career and you got it, and you're realizing every day that you're not smiling. Some days you don't even feel like doing it, and you say, well, this is not how I expected it to be, so I'm just not going to do it, and you give up. You've walked away from all this hard work and something you're passionate about because it didn't make you feel like a pot of gold at the end of every day, or it didn't make you feel stirred up every day. Let me tell you something. Ministry does not make me feel stirred up every day. Sorry for those of you guys that think I'm being too honest, but I believe transparency and truth is how we save souls, how we save people, and how people understand the truth about God. It's not fun every day for me to get up and do this. It's not easy for me every day to get up and do this. Some days I get up and I'm like, I don't feel like praying today. I don't feel like encouraging nobody today. No, I don't want to make no videos. No, I don't want to. But it's my passion. It's what I love. And it's not going to make me feel happy every day, but it does make me feel fulfilled. I love knowing that I'm doing what I've been called to do. And so even though my romanticized expectation of it is not met every day, I have the realistic expectation that the reward of doing what I'm supposed to do is better than what I dreamed it would have been. And so if you get into relationships and you expect it to be happy all the time and it doesn't happen, you might be leaving a good relationship because you didn't get up today and there were roses on your dresser. Well, it's not going to be like that every day. If you think that your personality will never clash with somebody else's, you're wrong. There are so many things in life that we take for granted, or we walk away from, or we give up on too soon because we had a wrong idea of what to expect. We thought that this job would be a job we love to get up and go to every day because for the first year we were there, we were always happy. Now you're on the job and you're getting a little tired and you're getting a little bored and you think, I shouldn't be here anymore. But you forget you got bills. So your expectation that this job would make you happy every day doesn't override the fact that you have bills, and realistically you need this job. So you can't just walk away because it's not making you feel butterflies every day when you get up and go. I love my job that I'm at now. Do I feel like coming every day? Absolutely not. Am I always jumping for joy to tell somebody about my job? No, because as an adult, anybody that work gets on your nerves. There will come a point in your life where even if you love what you do, there will come a day where you don't feel like doing it. It'll come a day where you don't feel rewarded. There will come a day where you wish you could have a whole week off and not have to look at nobody at your job. But realistically, you know that you love what you do and you know that you need the job. And so I can't speak enough on it because I've had so many expectations of my life. I expected when I was 15 years old, 15, 16, I expected that by 20, 25, somewhere around in there, I would be married. I would have a couple of kids. I would have this great career, this house, everything would be lovely. And that is not how my life is. However, realistically, God has allowed me to go through some things that have allowed me to adjust my expectations so that when I fail or when something doesn't go how I want it to go, I'm not disappointed and ready to give up on life, because I understand realistically it's never going to be perfect and it's never going to be how I would completely dream for it to be. But I know that even still, that the life that I have, the walk that I have with God, and the way that He has called me to be in life is better than sometimes even that perfect imagination type idea, whatever you want to say. I can't think straight right now. But I know that realistically I still have an amazing life. And so we have to stop thinking that just because something is not the way we expected it to be, that it's not still good, or it's not still a good opportunity or a good job or a good relationship. There are people right now that are married, that have been married for years and years and years, that will tell you that the idea that they had of marriage during the engagement process is not the same thing as the real marriage. I know my cousin Sharice, she and her husband made this awesome video, and it talks about their first year of marriage, and she talks about how awesome and how fun it was in the planning and the engagement and the preparation. And then once they got into the marriage and the work started and the waking up every day and some days not want to look at the person, or the arguments and the disagreements started, you realize it's almost like a shock value, because you realize, man, this is nothing like how I thought it would be. But in those moments when you realize that you have to have enough presence of mind and you have to have a realistic expectation and say, okay, this may not be how I thought it would be every day, but this is still the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, even though we're arguing and they're sleeping in the other room and I'm in the guest room, or they're on the couch and I'm in the bedroom. And we may be at odds right now, but that doesn't mean walk away from it because it didn't feel good today. I know that I love my job, but there are days where I'm like, I'm tired of doing this. I want more from my life. I expected more from my life. And in those moments, God will check me and say, I understand what you expected, but remember that I know the plans I have for your life, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to get you where I mean for you to be. And in those moments, I have to remind myself, okay, realistically, you know that your life is not your own, that to Him you belong, and that you have to give yourself every day to God, and that you have to surrender your flesh every day to God, because it's not about you. He put you here for a purpose. And so when God says, I know the plans that I have for your life, He's saying, and He says in His word, many are the plans in the heart of man, but God's plan will always prevail. So you can get up and plan your life every single day and be disappointed every single day because your expectation of how your day should have gone is not how your day went. Or you can get up every day and say, okay, God, now I know I have a lot of plans, a lot of things that I want from my life, things that I feel like I should have had. But if it doesn't happen that way, then I have to be happy and submit and accept the fact that your plan is better than mine. And I have to do that every single day. It is intentional. You have to die to yourself every single day. You have to die to your flesh every single day. I know in the last year, I have fought God so hard on how my life is, and there are days where I've gotten up and just cried, and I'm like, this is not fair. This is not where I expect it to be. This is not where I want it to be. I should have this, and I should have that, and I should be able to do this and that. And God is like, nope, you're where I need you to be. Stop whining every day. Adjust your perspective. Understand realistically that I have a purpose for you being here in this season, and go on about your day. And so when you get that idea and you adjust your expectations of people, you're not so hurt when they hurt you, because you understand, hey, they're not perfect. They're human, just like me. I've hurt people, whether it was intentionally or not intentionally. And yes, what they did may have hurt, but I don't have to be broken by it, because with people, we expect, I don't know why we do that, but we expect that people will never hurt us. And that because they say they will never leave us, or they will never cheat on us, or they will never lie on us or gossip about us, we really take people at face value, knowing that they're people and they're not perfect. And I've adjusted, and y'all, when I say it set me so free, I have adjusted my perspective. When people tell me, yeah, I would never do this, I would never do that, in my heart I'm thinking, I know you think you mean that, but my perspective is adjusted enough that I know that you're human and you're not perfect. So even though you may say that you'll never do something, or even though you may never want to do it to me, that at some point I will be disappointed by you because you're a person. Y'all, we will be disappointed by people we love. We will be disappointed by people that promise to never ever break our heart. We will be disappointed by people that promise us the world and can't give it to us. But if we would adjust our perspective and know that people are not perfect, it saves you a lot of heartbreak, a lot of tears, a lot of anguish and brokenness. In my last breakup, I can't tell you how many promises went unkept. I can't tell you how many lies that were never supposed to be told were told, how many things that were never supposed to happen did happen. But what I love is that I had been through so much by then with so many people that God had, every time he was adjusting my perspective, and every time he was giving me a little bit more of reality. So by the time I got to this person, I wasn't even like, I was actually surprised when God says that he'll give you a peace that passes all understanding. He is for real about that, because when the day that my breakup happened, I had this weird peace about it. Not because this person was bad, but because we were both broken and just not right for one another. And it was like, okay, realistically, I knew it was possible for this to happen. So I could be depressed and I could cry and I could whine, or I could understand that I already went into it with an understanding that this could happen, that it could fail, that we could break up, that it wouldn't be what I thought it was going to be. And I did. And I said, thank you, God, for realistic expectations, because it made it easier for me to walk away from a disappointing situation without giving up on God, without being mad at God and saying, that's not fair, I don't believe in you no more because it didn't turn out how I wanted it to be. I walked away and said, okay, God, realistically, I knew that could happen. And yeah, it hurts my soul a little bit, but I'll be all right. I'll be okay. This is not the end for me. And I have never gotten through something or over something so quickly in my life until I got to a point where I adjusted my expectations correctly. I've had really good jobs that I've walked away from because I wasn't feeling happy about it every day. And I would get to a point where I was like, man, I really should have kept that job. And see, expectations are emotional. So if you don't get up feeling a certain way, or if it's not making you feel how you want to feel, you think that you should be moving in a certain direction. But just because you don't feel something don't mean that you need to make a move. In fact, acting and moving emotionally is it's the worst thing you could ever do, because you could get you go to your job one day tired, sleepy, mad, irritated, and quit and walk out. Well, when you go home and realize you don't have a job and you got rent that's due next week, then that realistic expectation kicks in. So it's important that we don't act emotionally and that we adjust our expectations of people, of life, of things that we're going through, because it may not be how you expected it to be, but it's always going to be how God wants it to be or needs it to be for your journey. There are a lot of things in my life that I've done wrong that I never expected that I would do. I always expected I'd be on the straight and narrow, but God needed me to make those mistakes so that I could come into where I was actually supposed to be. So I don't really know why it was on my heart, but it was just really heavy on my heart to talk about expectations, because I think that we live in a world and a generation where expectation rules, and that's why we have so many people that are disappointed and depressed and sad and broken, because they had realistic expectations that were they had unrealistic expectations that weren't met, and they were disappointed. But you guys, if we learn to adjust our expectations of everything, know that, hey, I'm going to get into this relationship and it could either work or not. Realistically, I understand that. Realistically, I'm going to go to this job every day that I might not like, but I need that job. Realistically, I may argue with this person, or I may get into it with my family, or whatever the case may be. You've got to understand and adjust your expectations so that you understand that realistically it's not always going to be how you want it to be, but you're going to always be where God wants you to be at the time God wants you to be there. Like I said, I spent so many days of my life at the age of 26 looking back thinking how much, and you beat yourself up because your expectations are not met. And I look back and I'm like, God, I should have did this like everybody else when I was 18 and out of school. And God, I should have went off to college. And God, I should have did this. And I would have did that. And I could have did that. And God is like, stop whining and complaining about what you should have done, where you could have been. You had some unrealistic expectations of your life when you graduated, that you were going to have a perfect life, that it was going to be all right, and some things happen along the way, and some bumps in your road, and some mistakes that you made. And now at 26, you're looking back at the last 10 years of your life thinking, what did I do? And you're disappointed because your expectations of your life were not met. But that's where we have to submit to God and say, you know what, God, my plans might not have come into fruition, but your plans are always what's right for me. Because I never would have found my purpose if my expectations of my life would have been met. Why? Because I had very basic expectations of my life. I had very jaded expectations of my life. And I didn't dream big. I didn't think big. I thought, graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, meet somebody, get married, bump. Never did I see God taking me up and down and where. I never thought that God would take me where he has. But let me tell you something. The awesome thing about God is that if your expectations are not met, that's because he's going to succeed them. That's because he's going to exceed them. So if your expectations are where you thought you would be, if that's not what's happening, it's because God has something better for you. And I also want to speak on this because we settle in relationships because of our expectations too. That's right, Tabitha, the basic expectations. You could have God has a husband for you ready, right? But because you expected to be married by a certain age, you want to settle for somebody you know you shouldn't be with, somebody that you know doesn't have your values and your standards, somebody that you know honestly, quite honestly, is never going to feed your purpose or help you grow. But you'll settle. Why? Because you thought you'd be married at 25. And because people are telling you that your biological clock is ticking. So you feel like because society says at 25 you're single, something's wrong with you. Or because you've had 7 breakups since you were 18 and you're still not married, something is wrong with you, that you better hurry up and jump on this one person that you're with because that's the best you're going to ever get. Not ever. I can't tell you how many times God said no to my expectation because he has something better. The job I'm at right now, I was unemployed. I was going through a bad time. I was unemployed and I almost took this other job because after like 2.5 months of searching for a job, I had not found one. And I knew I was qualified, but I wasn't getting it. And I was like, God, why can't I get this? Why can't I get a job? All of a sudden, this place that I'm at called me. I had never heard of them. I hadn't applied for them. They found me, okay? The woman called me and said they'd like to set up an interview. And I'm like, I have never in my life heard of this place. And I almost didn't come to the interview. But God said, get up and go. I came. Best job I've ever had in my life. At the age of 26, I can say that this is the best job that I've ever had in my life. But if God would have met my expectation for that little minimum job that I was gonna settle for because I just needed something, and my expectation of having a job in 1 or 2 weeks wasn't met, I thought something was wrong. No, God said, I'm not gonna meet that expectation because you're not believing well enough. You're not thinking good enough. You're not trusting me for better. But I have an opportunity that you haven't even asked me for that I'm about to present to you. And so we have to stop stopping when our expectations are not met, and we have to understand that if my expectation is not met, there is something better down the road. Last year, when I went through that breakup, I thought I had met my husband. And so many people were like, why do you keep talking about that? I'm talking about it because relationships is one of the greatest areas of brokenness that we see in this generation. And I feel like it's important to speak on that for other people that may be going through it or may have no idea how to get out from under it. I got with somebody that I thought was my husband. And on the outside, it looked perfect. And everybody thought it was perfect. And even on the inside, it seemed perfect. But God was like, nope. That's the counterfeit. Because the devil is really good, side note, the devil is really good about sending a counterfeit before the real thing comes to throw you off and get you distracted. So in my head, I was like, oh my God, I done met my husband. Lord Jesus, I know this is you. We're going to be married in a year or two. Not at all, Felicia. Not at all, Felicia. 6 months later, I was broke up and right back to being single. And I was like, God, what's wrong with me? God was like, nothing's wrong with you. I just have better. Can you imagine the disappointment of feeling like, finally, after all of these failures, I've met the right person? But see, God said, I can't meet this expectation. I can't let you marry this person. I can't let this be the end for you, because number one, y'all are not right for each other. You're not evenly yoked, and there's stuff going on you don't know about, and I got to get you out of this because it could hurt you, it could hinder you, and it's not what I have for you. Now I'm at a settled place where I'm like, God, I'm cool being single as long as you want me to be single. Number one, because I have found my purpose. Now, had my expectation of marrying this person been met, I never ever would have found my purpose. I wouldn't be who I am today, where I am today, doing what I'm doing today. Why? Because this unhealthy, unevenly yoked person would have been in my way, and I would not have been able to see God. I wouldn't have been able to serve God. But what I love is that half the time I don't even really recognize my relationship status. I am so happy and content with what I'm doing. I spent so many years, y'all, broken, trying to find out who I was, trying to find out what my purpose was, trying to find out my value and my worth. When I found God, when I found Christ, when I found my purpose, I found all of that. So I'm so content and happy with where I am that it don't even bother me that I'm 26 and single. I could be 35 and single, but as long as I'm doing what I'm doing right now, which is what God has called me to do, it's not going to bother me one bit. Yes, I look around sometimes and I want a boo thing. And yes, I look around sometimes and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's married and da-da-da-da-da. And all my friends are married and all my friends have kids. But then I'm like, flesh, snap out of it, because your expectations were way too small. Your expectations of your life would have you somewhere with the wrong person at the wrong job in the wrong season of your life. But because God said no to meeting your unrealistic expectation, your basic expectation, your mediocre expectation, you have the most amazing future ahead of you. So I'm so glad I can look back now and I can say, God, thank you for not meeting that expectation, because I had no idea that I could think bigger or dream bigger or do better. But God said no to meeting that expectation because he's got something better. Expectations will disappoint you because you thought it would be a certain way, or you wanted it to be a certain way and it wasn't. Adjust your expectations, because your plan for your life is not, I'm telling you right now, that's not God's plan for your life. In fact, I've got in the habit every day. It's silly, but I love having the kind of intimate relationship I have with God, because I talk to him like he's a person and he's there. Every morning I wake up and I'm like, all right, Lord, good morning. I'm not planning nothing. You tell me how my day is going to go, and that's what we're going to do. And I have not been disappointed once. Why? Because I'm not living in my expectations no more. I'm not worried about what I want from my life. And that's where you find freedom from disappointment, from brokenness, from anger, from frustration. Adjust your expectation. Get some realistic expectations about yourself. Realistically, expect that God is not going to do in your life what you thought he would do, how you thought he would do it. Expect that realistically, your plan is not what's going to work out. Expect that people are going to hurt you and disappoint you and break your heart and make you angry and make you cry. But expect realistically that the God on the inside of you will get you through those moments. Expect that what you thought was supposed to happen that didn't happen wasn't God's best. And expect that if God said no to what you wanted, or no to what you planned, or no to what you saw, it's because he's got something better for you. And so it was on my heart so heavy to talk to you guys today about expectations, because I want us to stop being hurt and broken and stop giving up because our expectations are not met. Understand that anytime your expectations are not met, it's because God has something better. And also, adjust your expectations. Let them be realistic. People, we're not perfect. I've lied to people before. I've hurt people before. And I didn't even mean to. I would start out saying, I will never do that to you. I'll never hurt you. I'll never treat you like that. But then you get into it and emotions happen and y'all are frustrated, or even with your friends. Girl, I would never talk about you like that. And what you do, the first opportunity you get to go talk about somebody, that's what you do, right? We're human. So I can look back in my past, and even now, when I can say that, you know, sometimes I get frustrated at myself because I feel like I've let my parents down. I expected to be my parents' crown and joy. Well, that's not how I got there. That's not what happened. But I'm still doing that. You see? So my expectations of making my parents proud is not the way that God did it. But what I'm doing right now still makes my parents proud of me. So adjust your expectations. Stop thinking that you'll never get hurt, that you'll never be disappointed. Get that out of your mind. That's not a realistic expectation. Get it out of your mind that you're going to get up every day happy and ready to go to work. You're not. There's going to be a day where it's raining and you want to sleep. It's going to be a day where your coworker has made you mad and you don't want to look at them. It's going to be a day where you just don't feel like doing it. Adjust your expectations. Let them be realistic. And then know that if your expectation was not met, it's because God has something better for you.